Okay, so the way that you make a function is you type def for definition or define, and then you can name the function basically anything, but kind of with the same rules that we have for variables. So there's some words that you can't use, like you couldn't use array or true. That wouldn't be a good name for a function. And then every function needs to have parentheses and a colon. So this first line here is just about defining a function called first, and then anything that's tabbed under it is part of that function. So right now, if I run this code block, nothing happens. And the reason that nothing happens is the same thing that happened in MIT App Inventor when you'd put all those blocks into a purple procedure block, but then we never called it. What did you say, Abby? Yeah, you just like designed a perfect thing and never turned it on, right? So here, the way that we call a procedure is we just write the name of it with the parentheses. So now, if I run it, it'll say, y'all like different types of pies. And if I put like multiple print statements in it, when I run the function, it'll do multiple print statements. So this is kind of nice especially when we're thinking about like the combo menu and how for different items or for like printing out the menu, sometimes it's better to print out multiple lines than just one long run-on line. If you put a word or multiple words into the parentheses, we call these parameters. And parameters are things like pieces of data that you give to the function and that the function can use. So for example, maybe I don't want my function to always talk about Josh. Maybe I want my function to talk about different types of people. Now if I run it, we'll have an error because we can't just run the first function. We have to run the first function. We have to give it a name. So in the parentheses, I'm going to give it Abby's name. And now it says, Abby likes key lime pie. Do you like key lime pie? Okay. Would recommend. Can I make it what? Yeah, so what I would do instead is I would put an input outside. And then we can give the function that variable down below. Miss an equal sign, how embarrassing. What is your name? My name is Mr. Geiger. And then it'll take that input and then it'll put it into the function. You okay with that? Aiden? You okay with that? So the next function that we've got down here is actually a function that you're going to do in your project. It's called movie cost, and it takes two different parameters. It takes a people parameter and a price parameter. So it's very important. You could always make your parameters just like letters. But if you do that, it might be hard for someone who didn't write your code to read your code and kind of understand what type of data needs to be given where. Okay? So by naming it specific things, that's called an abstraction. And what that allows us to do is keep straight, okay, the first number that I put in the parentheses has to be the number of people coming, and the second number that I put in the parentheses has to be the price of the movie ticket. Here it says it makes a new variable in the function. This would be a local variable because it's only within the scope of the function when the function runs. And what it does is it multiplies the people times the price. It calculates the tax, and then it adds on the tax to the total price. Then here you'll see that it returns the total. And so if I go down here and I just run the movie cost function with 2 people and $5 movie tickets, it'll tell me $10.56. That's great. But if I run this function more than once, it'll only give me the last time I ran it. And that's because this function ends with return and it doesn't end with print. So I have two options. I could change the last line of my function. And now when I run the function on line 9 and 12, it gives me two different printouts. But the reason that we might want to keep it Control MZ. I don't know what I just did. Okay. The reason we we'll just redo. So what I did is I did like mega Control Z, which took a whole cell away. All right. So the reason that return is sometimes useful in lieu of print or instead of print is because return will keep the type of data that total is as that type of data. So for this example, what type of data is total? It's either float or integer. Does it have a decimal or not? It does. So is it a float or an integer? A float. So the reason we would leave it as a return like this is you can see down in line 14 here, I'm going to add whatever comes back from the 2.5 run of this function plus the 20 and 8 function. So that's how much a date would cost on a Tuesday night and how much taking a field trip of 20 students would cost. I'm going to add those together, and then I'm just going to print what the total outcome is. Okay, and if I run this right now, it'll give me a total price of $179. If this were to say print, this will break it because it's trying to like print and then add and then print again. Okay, and so that return sometimes is a more useful way to basically give a function some inputs, and then the function will just give you an answer output that you can print if you want to or use in a different function later. Questions? I think that's all. Yeah. That's all I got to show you for this.